In the shadowed mountains of the Balkans, a single man stood against the most feared empire on earth, and refused to kneel. His name was Skanderbeg, and what he did to the Ottomans shook the foundations of imperial power. The Ottoman Empire in the 15th century was unstoppable, or so the world believed. Its armies crushed kingdoms, absorbed cultures, and expanded like a tidal wave from Anatolia into Europe. Cities fell one by one. Princes bent the knee. Popes trembled. But in the rugged highlands of Albania, the tide broke. George Castrioti, known to history as Skanderbeg, was not born an enemy of the Ottomans. As a boy, he was taken as part of the Devshirme system, raised in the Ottoman court, educated in their military traditions, and molded into one of their finest commanders. He fought for the Sultan, conquered for the empire, and earned the name Iskender Bey, Alexander Lord, after Alexander the Great. The Ottomans believed they owned him. They were wrong. In 1443, during a chaotic Ottoman campaign in Hungary, Skanderbeg vanished from the battlefield. Declared dead by Ottoman records, he instead rode hard toward his homeland. Using forged imperial documents, he seized the fortress of Cluj, raised his family's banner, and renounced the Sultan in a single, defiant act. That moment was more than betrayal, it was strategic rebellion. Skanderbeg understood something the Ottomans underestimated: geography could defeat numbers. Albania was not open plain, it was stone, forest, and narrow passes. He rallied local clans, uniting rival families under the League of Ligia, something no foreign power had ever achieved. Where others saw disorganized tribes, Skanderbeg forged a nation in arms. The Ottomans responded with overwhelming force. They sent tens of thousands of troops, seasoned janissaries, elite cavalry, and siege engineers. Against them stood a much smaller Albanian army, often outnumbered 10 to 1. Yet again and again, Skanderbeg shattered Ottoman columns using ambushes, night raids, false retreats, and sudden mountain strikes. He never fought the war the Ottomans expected. Instead of defending cities passively, he attacked supply lines. Instead of meeting armies head-on, he dissolved into the terrain. Ottoman commanders found themselves bleeding men without ever seeing the enemy clearly. Morale collapsed. Campaigns dragged on far longer than planned. The siege of Cluj became legendary. In 1450, Sultan Murad II personally led an army said to exceed 100,000 men to crush Skanderbeg once and for all. Cannons pounded the walls. Assaults came daily. The Ottomans expected weeks. They got months of humiliation. Skanderbeg harassed the besiegers constantly, striking camps at night, burning provisions, assassinating officers, then vanishing into the mountains. Disease spread. Supplies ran thin. Winter closed in. Finally, the Sultan withdrew, leaving behind thousands of dead and a reputation scarred. This was not just a battlefield defeat, it was a symbolic fracture. For the first time, Europe saw the Ottomans stopped cold. Not delayed. Not bribed. Stopped. Word spread quickly. Rome celebrated Skanderbeg as the champion of Christendom. Venice, Naples, and Hungary sent aid. More importantly, the Ottomans were forced to do something unprecedented: divert massive resources to a small, defiant region that refused to fall. Every army sent to Albania was an army not marching on Italy, Vienna, or Rome. Skanderbeg's resistance did not just defend his homeland, it bought Europe time. For over 2 decades, he held the line. Each campaign drained Ottoman manpower, treasury, and prestige. Generals feared assignment to Albania. Soldiers whispered that the mountains were cursed, that Skanderbeg could see through stone, that death followed his banner. He became more than a man, he became a myth. But myths have consequences. And in humiliating the Ottomans so thoroughly, Skanderbeg exposed something far more dangerous than weakness. He exposed their limits. Empires do not collapse when they are weak, they collapse when the world realizes they can bleed. Skanderbeg didn't just fight the Ottomans. He revealed their vulnerability. The Ottoman Empire survived defeat before. Losses were expected. But Skanderbeg's rebellion created a far more dangerous problem, a precedent. If a small Balkan principality could defy the Sultan for decades, what else was possible? This question haunted the Ottoman court. Each failed campaign against Skanderbeg damaged the empire's aura of inevitability. The Ottomans ruled not just by force, but by reputation. Cities surrendered because resistance seemed pointless. Skanderbeg proved resistance could succeed, brutally, repeatedly, and publicly. After Murad II's failure, his successor Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, inherited the Albanian problem. Mehmed was ruthless, brilliant, and obsessed with total domination. Yet even he could not simply erase Skanderbeg. Campaign after campaign ended in frustration. Mehmed's armies marched deep into Albania, only to find scorched earth and empty valleys. Fortresses fell, but the war did not end. Skanderbeg avoided annihilation by refusing decisive engagements unless conditions favored him. The Ottomans won territory, lost control, and bled men continuously. This was strategic warfare at its most punishing. The cost was enormous. The Ottomans were forced to keep large standing forces in the Balkans permanently. Supply routes stretched thin. Other fronts suffered. Hungarian and Wallachian forces grew bolder. Italian states watched nervously, but also gained breathing room. Skanderbeg's greatest victory was not a single battle. It was delay. By holding the Ottomans in Albania from 1443 to 1468, he disrupted their momentum at a critical moment in history. Western Europe was weak, divided, and unprepared. Had the Ottomans surged unchecked, southern Italy and beyond were realistic targets. Instead, they were stalled by one man and a mountain kingdom. When Skanderbeg died in 1468, the resistance slowly weakened. Albania eventually fell. The Ottomans claimed victory, but it was a victory that came too late and at too high a cost. Europe had changed. Fortifications improved. Alliances hardened. Naval power expanded. The fear of the Ottomans remained, but the belief in their invincibility was gone. Skanderbeg had planted that doubt with blood and steel. Even within the Ottoman system, lessons were learned the hard way. Commanders realized that numbers meant nothing without logistics. That loyalty could be broken. That men raised within the empire, like Skanderbeg himself, could turn against it with devastating effect. The irony was cruel. The Ottomans had trained their own worst enemy. Skanderbeg's legacy outlived his conquests. His tactics influenced later resistance movements. His story became a rallying cry for Balkan identity. His name echoed in courts and chronicles as a reminder that empires, no matter how vast, could be challenged by intelligence, unity, and terrain. He did not destroy the Ottoman Empire. He did something more dangerous. He exposed it. Exposed that even the mightiest empire could be stalled by determination. Exposed that fear was their greatest weapon, and once broken, their power diminished. Exposed that resistance was not madness, but strategy. In the end, Skanderbeg stood as proof that history is not always written by the largest armies, but by those who understand how to make giants stumble. And when the Ottomans finally moved west again, they did so with caution. Because once, in the mountains of Albania, an empire learned how vulnerable it truly was.